While I was on a train, I saw a tall figure in the mountains waving at me. I was confused about what it was when suddenly my dad's face changed and he quickly pulled the curtain shut, his whole body shaking as he said to my mom, "It's him. He's here." My mom asked, "Who is here?" My dad kept repeating, "It's him. He's here." Standing there in the mountains looking at me, his eyes were filled with fear I couldn't even describe. My mom suddenly seemed to remember something and became alert. She said, "Are you sure? It's been decades. That thing should have died of old age by now." My dad said, "I didn't see wrong. It's him." Hearing that my mom's face turned pale too, she carefully opened a small gap in the curtain and looked outside. When she saw nothing, her expression relaxed a bit and she said, "You must have seen it wrong. There's nothing in the mountains. Are you getting sleepy?" My dad said, "That can't be. I clearly saw it. It hasn't appeared for so many years. Why would it show up when we finally travel far? You know we are almost 200 kilometers away from that place." Then he hesitated and said, "Maybe I was wrong. Even if that thing isn't dead, it shouldn't be able to follow us this far." But still not convinced, he opened the curtain a little again and looked outside. And suddenly he jumped up from his seat in shock and said, "It's here. It's really here." Seeing my dad like that, I knew he wasn't joking. My mom also looked through the curtain and the next second her body shook and she collapsed into the seat. She said, "What do we do? It's here. We can't escape. Why after so many years and it was something from the older generation? Why is it still haunting us?" I was completely confused by their reaction and asked, "What exactly is that thing?" My dad quickly covered my mouth and said, "Don't say anything. Don't say its name. If you say it, it will remember our voice and then we will have no chance at all." Out of curiosity, I looked out the window and saw that the figure was much bigger than when I first saw it. And for some reason, my legs suddenly felt weak and hard to control. I don't know why. My mom said we can't just sit here and wait to die. But my dad said the snow has blocked the mountain and the train has stopped. It won't move until at least tomorrow. Then what do we do? My dad stayed silent for a moment and said, "There are many people on this train and the smell is mixed. If we change seats, maybe that thing won't find us." And he took us to another carriage. There we saw two people lying in the yard. Both of them had no heads and their bodies were twisted in a horrible way. People around started talking, saying how pitiful they were. Even their heads were gone. Could it be a bear from the mountains? There are such dangerous animals in these mountains. Such beasts should be killed. The passengers were all discussing it, but my parents kept their heads down and didn't say a word. I quietly asked, "Could this be done by that thing?" My dad quickly covered my mouth again and said, "Don't talk nonsense." Just then, Dongzi suddenly looked up at me and asked, "What did you say?" "What thing?" My dad quickly said, "The kid watches too many horror movies and is just talking nonsense. Don't take it seriously." Dongzi had just lost his parents and was deep in grief, so he didn't think much. He just kept looking at his phone. Then someone saw a video on his phone and said, "What is this? Bring it closer." Dongzi didn't understand but still showed it. And in the video behind the yard wall, there was a tall figure standing there. It had long arms and was slowly waving at the camera. Someone said, "What is that thing?" "Maybe that thing is the one that killed your parents." "Is that a bear or something?" "But I have never seen such a huge bear in my life. This thing is definitely not a normal bear." "Have you ever seen a bear with such long arms?" "Then what exactly is it?" After saying that, all the passengers fell silent because no one could answer. My parents looked at each other but still didn't say the truth that was close to the answer. I asked why they didn't tell Dongzi the truth. My dad said, "We can't talk about this. Dongzi may be innocent, but the lives of the three of us are more important." Time passed slowly and that tall figure really didn't appear again. My dad said that thing finds people by smell. And since there are so many people on the train, it can't find us or Dongzi. So we should be safe now. But just then there was a loud thump from the roof of the train like something heavy had landed on it. Someone shouted, "What was that?" Then two more heavy thumps followed, as if something was walking on top of the carriage. My mom whispered to my dad, "Is it here?" My dad told her to be quiet and not let it hear our voices. Someone else said this thing is really strange. We already changed several carriages, so how did it still find us? Another person guessed maybe it's some large animal that got on top of the train. Maybe a tiger or a wild boar because it must be very heavy. The passengers kept talking nervously. Some brave person even took a flashlight and stuck his head out to look. People warned him to be careful. Seconds passed and more than 20 seconds went by, but that man didn't move at all. The person next to him felt something was wrong and pushed him, and his body just collapsed softly and his head was gone as if something had bitten it off. When everyone saw this, they all screamed in fear. Then the staff came and said, "Everyone stay calm. It was probably a wild animal attack. Don't go near the windows. We will handle this." They started patrolling inside the carriage. Someone said, "Now that there are guards with guns, we should be safe." But my dad said, "You have no idea how terrifying that thing is." Back then, even when people shot at it again and again, it didn't get hurt much. But maybe it has left because there are too many people here and it's hard for it to attack. While my parents were talking, I looked outside the window again and suddenly saw a pair of huge eyes staring straight at me as if it was smiling at me. And then it disappeared into the dark night. I got so scared that I screamed and started shaking uncontrollably. My dad quickly asked what happened. I said I saw that thing. My dad's face changed and he looked outside but saw nothing. Another hour passed, and since nothing happened outside, the two guards also left the carriage. And someone glared at Dongzi and said, "Maybe that thing came because of you." Dongzi got angry and said, "What are you talking about?" The man said, "Your parents were eaten by something strange. Maybe it didn't have enough and followed your smell to find you." Another person agreed and said, "Something that can tear a person's head off in one move is definitely not a normal animal. Only something like what was in your phone video could do that." Dongzi tried to say something, but someone grabbed his phone and showed the video to everyone and said, "Come here and look. Come look. Is it only this kind of thing that could be so strange? It's you. You're the one who brought it here." Dongzi became nervous under everyone's gaze and moved closer to us like he was asking for help. I said, "Everyone calm down. Even if that thing is here, we are still protected by the train." It already jumped onto the roof but still couldn't get inside. Hearing that the monster couldn't enter, the passengers finally calmed down. Around 2 in the morning, everyone was extremely sleepy. Suddenly my mom said, "I didn't touch you." She looked at my dad and saw his eyes wide open, shaking his head desperately. My mom seemed to understand something. Then my dad quickly took me to the other side of the carriage. At that moment, a huge rock smashed into the train and broke a hole. From that hole, a long arm reached in and instantly grabbed a passenger and dragged him out. People screamed in terror. The guards rushed over and asked what happened. Someone shouted, "There is a monster, I saw it." The guard shined a flashlight outside through the hole but saw nothing and said, "Maybe you imagined it," but others said no. Someone was dragged away. We all saw it. The guard said, "Don't spread panic. It was just a rock falling from the mountain." But my dad said this thing is too smart. It knows it can't break the train. So it pushed rocks from the mountain. Its target is probably us, and it won't stop until it gets us. Just then, another arm suddenly reached toward the carriage again. Everyone started shaking in fear. Someone said, let's run. If we stay here, this monster might kill us all. Others agreed, saying we should leave before we end up in its stomach. Soon passengers started breaking windows and escaping outside. Dongzi said, let's go too, and ran out with the others. I told my dad I had something to say. He asked what it was. I said, wasn't Dongzi supposed to have died years ago? You even took me to his funeral. My dad said, don't talk nonsense. Dongzi is clearly alive. I got confused and even doubted myself. Then my mom said, maybe we should leave too. My dad agreed, saying the train is no longer safe. After getting off the train, my dad gathered 10 people and we started heading down the mountain together. After some time, thick fog suddenly filled the mountain. Because the fog was so heavy, we started counting people to make sure no one was missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There were supposed to be only 10 people. So where did the 11th person come from? My dad asked, who are you? The man said, I just lost my way. What are you doing knocking on my door? My dad explained the snow blocked the road and the train stopped. So we came down the mountain because we have urgent matters. The man asked why we were in such a hurry. My dad said we have something important. Then asked if the man had a vehicle because we wanted to go to the nearby town. The man said he didn't have a car and wasn't lying. Then my dad asked if anyone in the village had one. The man said the village head has a tricycle and he could help us. My dad thanked him and said, please help us. And then said, when you come back, remember to knock 4 times in a pattern. 3 light and 1 heavy. The man looked confused but didn't say anything. Soon we heard the sound of a vehicle outside and footsteps near the gate. My dad's face turned serious as we waited. Then there was a rapid knock on the door. Who is it? The voice outside said, didn't you send Erwa to find me to take you to the county? If you're not going, I'll leave. My dad said, wait, did Erwa tell you how to knock? The man replied, what kind of knocking rule is that? You outsiders are really strange. Why so careful? Did you do something wrong? Open the door quickly. Then he started knocking harder as if trying to break the door. My dad stepped back nervously and my mom whispered, could it be that monster? My dad said, maybe, don't open the door yet. After about a minute, there was another knock and the man said, open the door. It's freezing outside. Who are you? I'm the village chief. Didn't you ask Erwa to get me to take you to the county? My dad asked again. Did he tell you how to knock? The man paused and then knocked in the correct pattern. My dad finally relaxed and opened the door. Outside stood a middle-aged man around 40 or 50 with a 3-wheeled vehicle. My dad asked if he saw anything strange on the way. The man said he thought he saw a figure in the fog but wasn't sure. We told him we also saw something while coming down and didn't know if it was a bear. Hearing that, the village chief quickly came inside and shut the door tightly and said, why didn't you tell me earlier? My dad said we were in a hurry and didn't think of it. Who knew it would follow us down? Then my dad asked if he could buy the vehicle. The chief asked how much money he had. My dad showed all he had, but the chief said it wasn't enough and offered to drive us himself. My dad actually wanted to buy the vehicle to avoid dragging the chief into danger, but had no choice now. We got on, and just after starting, the chief suddenly hit the brakes. My dad asked why he stopped. The chief said, have you thought about this? You sent Erwa to get me, but why didn't he come back with me? My dad asked, what do you mean? The chief suddenly smiled strangely and said, what if I'm not the real village chief? Seeing the fear on Erwa's face, he burst out laughing and said, don't be scared. Erwa just went to pick vegetables. My dad said, don't scare me like that. I'm not brave. The chief told us to sit tight and drove faster. The vehicle sped away from the village. Along the way, he was humming a song but suddenly stopped and said, I feel like something is following us. My dad said, are you joking again? The chief said, no, this time. I'm serious. Look behind. When we turned, we saw a tall figure running behind the vehicle. My dad said, this is not a normal animal. If this continues, we won't escape. Only that person can save us. My dad gave the chief more money and told him to drive faster. The chief sped up and soon left the monster behind for a while. After passing a few alleys, we finally reached a villager's house my dad mentioned. We got down and walked to an old house where a hunched old woman stood outside. My dad immediately knelt down and begged, please save our family. It's here, the old woman said. This is the sin your family caused and has nothing to do with me. Go back, my dad said. Even if you won't save me, my wife and child are innocent. Please save them. Just as he was speaking, heavy footsteps came from behind and the tall figure appeared again in the fog, staring at us with huge eyes. My dad clenched his teeth and ran forward, then knelt down and said, if you are angry, then kill me. But please spare my wife and child, they are innocent. My mom also ran forward and knelt beside him. After a long time, there was no movement from the fog, and my parents realized the thing had disappeared. The old woman stood beside me with a complicated expression and gently touched my head and said, back then, Ajay also lost a child.